Hey BrickBloggeteers, Will here, and today we're looking at set 10357, Shelby Cobra 427S/C. Now, the Shelby Cobra was a very important car for American racing because it marked the time where we moved from amateur racing and road racing to professional racing. And Shelby Cobra was one of the fastest cars out on the road. It was winning the initial Grand Prix that was there, which is why you also built a tiny little statue, trophy. I do like they use a little roller skate for a car for the top of the trophy. But the Shelby Cobra comes down to three main people that are responsible. Of course, you have Carroll Shelby, who was the owner, the boss, basically made all the decisions. You had Peter Brock, who was the designer, who basically turned the vision into reality and made all the engineering work. And then you had Ken Miles, who was the test driver and developer to make sure that the actual race car won races and was a really good race car. Now, this version here is the 427, which means it has in the hood a replica of a 427 motor, 427 meaning the cubic inches of pressure that the engine makes. That is a very big motor for the time. In fact, the first version of the Shelby Cobra had a 289 motor, so it also had a different body. It didn't look anything like this, but it was winning races. Why Shelby decided to go with this is because he wanted to compete against Ferrari over in Europe. And his initial 289 Cobras, they topped out at about 160 miles an hour. Of course, the engineers like Brock had an idea to change up the body, which actually looked a bit more like this. Not exactly like this, but you started seeing the cut off back tail pieces, the curvature, and how the overall structure of the body was going to look. That happened in '64. And Ford, who was bankrolling a lot of Shelby Cobra because, well, they were providing the engine, they didn't want to pay for that body. So what Shelby did is he went over to Goodyear, and Goodyear paid for the prototype, which, like I said, didn't look like this. Instead, what happened is there was some problems. They overfilled the gas tank, they caught the car on fire, and Shelby said, no, we're done. Then he went to AC Cars, which was a British chassis maker. And they lost their contract to put motors in their cars, so they needed someone who had motors. They had Ford Motors. They wanted to put a big one in, and he brought the two together to create, and then he took Brock's designs to incorporate this in there, and that's where we start getting this. And if you notice the side pipes on here, these were initially not even intended to be on the sides, even though they're like one of the most iconic things about this car and people love. They were intended to go actually underneath the car. The problem was the motor was so big it didn't fit. So the compromise was put it on the side of the car. And thus was born this iconic look. You also started getting the tilt nose in front, which is a fantastic connection in front. You actually have clips that clip into the main frame of the car, and then you have lift arms underneath that secure it on either side just to get that minor little tilt, which looks absolutely fantastic. And of course, the back does have a trunk that opens up, and that's where you have a little toolbox that's filled with tools inside here. And this back trunk is made specifically to hold this in there. So the idea was that Shelby wanted a more powerful engine so it could go faster, a lighter frame, which the British one did, and with Brock's designs came together to make this so that he could compete in the European races and win, which is why you have this iconic blue with Le Mans stripes on the front, because that's those are the type of races he wanted to races, because Shelby made his name winning Le Mans, and because of a heart condition, he had to stop racing. But he didn't want to stop in the race car business. So, lots and lots of history. Other features that I do want to point out is this thing has a ton of great looking curved elements in it. So the edges of the door, there's this rounded quarter round that's like 5 plates high, just to make, and that's put on sideways. On the edge of the car, you have lots of thin slopes like that are 4 long, and they're cut left and right to round it out and to get that very specialized narrow rounded look in front. You have back sections here that have more of a sharp cut to fill in extra body work. You have these extended fins on the side to overcome the extra rubber that they needed for some of the tires. You do have working steering in this vehicle. As for stickers, you have 3 of them. One of them is the license plate in the back, which is the 427 SC to represent the model. On the glove box, Shelby liked to sign his name on the glove box, so you have a replica of his signature. And there is a sticker on the dashboard for some extra gears. Anything else that has a design, like even on the steering wheel, there's a tiny little tile with the Cobra design. You have tiles going all across the length of the car to help create the stripe. You have the Cobra design in the front and back. All that is printed. So that makes the car look fantastic and not have anything offset. Like, for example, the Ford Mustang had stickers on it that made it look a little off. At $159.99, this is on the pricier side for Icon's vehicles. However, the building experience was absolutely fantastic. Just like minor things like with the front nose tilt, the whole back section with all the curves on there. You're putting bricks in all different directions and mounting them sideways. I didn't even point out that there's side grills in here, and they use negative space with some of the elements. It's a modified tile with a bar up top. One of them's upright, one of them's turned upside down, and that's just so they can use the inner hole area that's empty space to fit a grill slope in there, just to get that tiny little detail. This set is full of those experiences. So $159.99, you do get your money's worth out of it. Again, that's set number 10357, Shelby Cobra 427 SC.